this guy is
This
absolutely
is a
knows.
call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Remember the 11th of September. Obviously, today's date everybody is aware of, unless they're not of the.
It's remember the 5th of November. And that was an anti-government statement. That was a religious nutjob statement. There is a difference.
This earth, which then again, there's a lot of people who aren't of this earth walking around at this point. But I thought I'd do a video talking about it because it is the anniversary, because so many people were woken up on that day. And of course, we know everything that's happened since then in this world and how crazy things have gotten to this point. And obviously, of course,
And Cole says you've been woken up. It means you come to the conspiracy theory side, the dark side of the internet. With the more conspiracy theories, the merrier.
thankfully to our government, we figured out who did it and got them. You know, Al Qaeda, and Bin Laden, they were responsible. Wait, what is it? Hold on, my phone's ringing. 1 second, sorry. Hang on, let me grab this real quick. Sorry about that. Hello? Yeah. No, I'm making soup. Yeah, I'll call you back. A matzo ball. I'll call you back. Oh, sorry. Anyway, Al Qaeda, of course, responsible for it, and was taken care of, thankfully, to the wonderful military and our wonderful government, of course. And I wanted to talk about, I guess, my experience with that whole situation, where I was, what was going on, and I want to hear your experiences too. I know it's not something I normally do on this channel. I don't like to talk too much about my personal life. This channel is not about me. I try to just...
This channel is all about you, Cole. And some of your fancy stories about whatever crap you're making up about now. Carry on.
Show you what's going on, sometimes joke about it. Obviously, with everything going on in the world now, all you can really do is joke about it, because there's not much that can be done. It's so insane what they're getting away with at this point. But there's nothing to joke about, of course, when it comes to that specific date and the lives that were lost. And I think before I get into, what I was...
But you're turning it into a money-making spinner. It's not a joke, but it's a money-making cash grab. It's a cash grab for conspiracy theorists.
Doing then. I think what's crazy is about what's going on now is there's way more people who are awake now than there were then. If you look at a world pre that time period, there weren't a lot of people who were considered conspiracy theorists. There was the Bill Coopers.
That isn't awake. From previous experience, it is not awake. It is just wanting to find reason for crap in the world. But it's not awake. It's latching on to idiots like you to listen to idiots like you. Thinking that you actually have something meaningful to say when you're just cash grabbing off YouTube.
There was a lot of, there's Tex Mars. There was a lot of people who wrote books and gave information about a lot of the things that are going on, of course. And there's people, there have been people like Ted Gunderson and so on and so forth. A handful of people who you would look at and you would try to find their books and things like that. Of course, that's also pre the internet being what it is now. But it's surprising to me that what they're doing now, they're doing in this time period only because so many people are in their 40s are wide awake, because people were 20 years old, people were in high school when that happened. And I know, I could tell you for a fact, the majority of truthers out there were woken up because of that specific event. They knew something wasn't right. They knew what they were being told wasn't right. Then they were getting fed up.
Truthers are scared that their reality is crashing down around them, and people like you go, I'll give you a version of reality that is absolute and so the craziest, that gives you a reason for the truth. That is the world is just shit. It's just shit, and there are shit people that do shit things, and to spin it into some sort of nut job conspiracy theory, yes, they were holographic planes. Yes, they were the government blowing it up themselves, etc., etc. It's a lot of crap. Douchebags happen, and douchey things happen. That's well, shitbags happen, and they do shit things. That's all it is.
A false narrative from people like Michael Moore, or whatever his name is. That guy, giving out the oil and all that. And then, if you continue, that was the narrative they wanted to give you a taste of, because they knew people would question what they saw and question the narrative being given. So they give you another false narrative. And then obviously a lot of us went deep down the hole and figured all of this stuff out. And if you haven't figured it out, well, you could just rewind the video and listen to my phone go, I'm kidding. Oh, what? Anyway. So it surprises me that they're doing it now, which makes me think it has to be now. For whatever, Satan and whatever these demons have to do, it has to be by 2030. They've been given a deadline. Otherwise, unless they're really, really greedy, which they are.
Satan has nothing to do with blowing up Twin Towers. People have things to do with blowing up Twin Towers, but no guy called Satan did that shit.
And prideful, which they are. But also, I hate to think that they're this stupid, because this is their game. It's like if you create a game, you're going to know every which way to win the game. So this is their game, and we're stuck in the game, and they're messing up at every turn. They can't influence people. They can't trick people the way that they thought. I mean, sure, they have 50% of the population, but that's about it, which tells me that, they would have needed to do this 20 to 30 years from now. I guarantee you 80% probably of the population would have been on board for everything, 90%. Maybe even more than that. You have to keep letting generations go and leave the earth, and then you have a whole generation of brainwashed people. But I feel like it has to be now, because there's so many people who are awake from that event who know what they're doing right now, who have been talking about it, and that's why they're so hell-bent on silencing everyone. So it's surprising.
No one's silencing you. You're here talking. You were being silenced. You won't get to hear of reopening YouTube channels when you're bad from YouTube.
Surprises me from that standpoint. But as far as the day goes, just for a rundown of what it's kind of like one of those days where, when I was a kid, you'd hear people talk about JFK, where they were and what happened. But I was in college learning nothing, of course. And I remember, I woke up, I had a class pretty early.
So he was learning nothing in college because it was too big brain for him to learn something.
I woke up and my parents had seen, had the TV on and everything like that. And my dad was like, "You ain't going nowhere." And I was like, "Huh?" He's like, cleaning my eyes from waking up. I'm like, what's going on? Especially back then, nobody likes to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock. I guess it was 9 o'clock, 9:30 maybe. He's like, "You're not going anywhere. You're not going to school." And I just went, "Oh," and I went, "Great. Wow." I was like, this is a blessing. But, I didn't know what had happened yet. And I was like, why? What's going on? And then I had seen the TV and what was going on. And of course, that, like most people, that began my awakening. Really, McMartin is what woke me up.
What
because I
really
knew the inside stuff.
Was America's ego took a big bash. Before that day, in 9/11, America thought, we're untouchable. We're Americans. And then that happened, and that when American people went, people can blow us up. Yeah, shit like that can happen. It's called the real world.
With this, but I needed to know the McMartin piece of it, the satanic aspect, to really connect the dots and figure all this stuff out with the cabal and everything else. So, I woke up that day and obviously, just like everybody else, I was ingrained in what was going on, watching it.
God.
When we ended up going back to classes, that's all they talked about. It was like therapy in school. They were just like asking everyone their feelings, instead of whatever we were supposed to be there to learn anyway. And
there's a huge traumatic event and people are offering you free counselling. And you think that's funny. you seriously brought up in that messed of a household that you cannot have counselling. This is a problem, because there's far too many of you lot toting around your little guns that are absolutely paranoid because they're living in fear of stuff that isn't happening. And they're living in fear of stuff that isn't happening because they listen to people like you, and you listen to other people like you. And there goes a cycle of fear.
And I guess the experience I remember most is, so that was the 11th. The 21st, since I was pretty close to the city, the 21st I went into the city because I actually went with a couple of my friends to see the Mets play. And I grew up a Yankee fan, but it was a big thing because, everything was on pause. The Mets came back and they played the Braves. And, some of you probably are familiar with it, the game that Mike Piazza hit that home run and people were crying and everything like that. But my friend was like, let's just go, and obviously my dad was like, you're not going, even though I was old enough to do whatever I wanted. That's kind of how, being raised in an Italian household, that's how it is sometimes. But I went, and I guess we took the train into the city, and before we went to the game, we went by Ground Zero. I remember it was like it was.
Of course you went by Ground Zero. I think everyone would have gone down by Ground Zero for nosy, because that's what kind of sickos the human race is.
It was sunny, but it was like eerie. It was still beyond smoky. And we walked right in front of it, right by the whole thing. All the stuff that you see on TV, standing there. It was the eeriest silence ever. Police were in the streets telling people to cross, which way to cross, and nobody said a word. I mean, and you could just feel death. You could smell sulfur, as they say. And I'll never obviously forget that. I mean, I know people are always like, I'll never forget it. Well, obviously this is something you would never ever forget.
Satan has nothing to do with the Twin Towers. In fact, I think you need to read the Quran, because the Quran actually mentions Jesus' name more than the New Testament does. It's the same God you are worshipping. If the Quran is evil, then so too is the Bible, because it's practically the same book, just with slightly different authors. That's the only difference between the Bible and the Quran. They've got slightly different authors.
Walking by it, and just the smoke. I mean, it was burned your eyes. Even,
This is how fast YouTube is with Brave. Notice how there's no pre-roll ads? And here's how you can see how much time you save with Brave.
10 days later, it was still going on. You could hear, all you would hear was just the sound of steel, them cutting through steel. That's all you could hear. There was no talking. No one said a word. It was like still being at a funeral.
Because everyone is in shock.
I hate to use that term because it's, it should be a sensitive topic to everyone. Thinking about what they did. Sometimes I'm up late at night and I watch, I'd watch like clips of the live reports from, Howard Stern, or, in the city, there was Don Imus,
You're saying everyone was in shock after that shite happened? Because I tell you what, if I'd have been in New York when that shit happened, I wouldn't have been leaving my house for days afterwards. It's just, and I don't understand how you can get away with blah, 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 blah. You know what, I'm going to stop this video, because all you're going to say is Satan, 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 and lead up to Satan on this one. You can go back and have a look at